All right. Is Mark online? We're just waiting for Mark. Hello, Mark. Yeah, there you are. So you need a haircut and I need hair. All right. So, Mark, thanks so much for joining us. I know you're busy in the garden and doing all your gardening and all your plantation work, but yeah, thanks so much for joining us. We have, an interesting audience who are very, very curious to hear what you have to say. All right. So just Mark, everybody in India who is in the diving profession knows you, okay? Everyone knows you. But there are people who are not a part of this industry as well who have joined us. Just for their benefit, please let us know what you do before I, try and make a mistake. So why don't you just explain what you do and where you're based out of and things like that. Yeah.
I've been living in Thailand for the last 30 years almost. I have my 50th birthday tomorrow.
Hey, yeah. Happy birthday in advance, Mark.
I've been here for almost 3 decades, working in the dive industry. I was fortunate enough to start when I was very young and got into diving as a 12-year-old, and I've dived all around the world.
Did you say 12-year-old? Was it even legal to dive then, or did you just do the bubble maker course?
It was a diver certification, a certification that's not around anymore.
Okay.
I dived a lot at school between 12 to 17, then fortunate enough to travel the world and dive in some really spectacular spots. But the last 30 years have been teaching. Now working as a course director for, I think, 24 years. And that concentrates on teaching dive professionals. And I've been very to be involved with the dive professional market in India. I think for the last 7 or 8 years, been teaching out of Pondicherry and Andaman Islands.
Okay.
So as you mentioned, I've had the opportunity to meet a lot of the guys there. And
I've been telling Neha I'm going to ask this question. She's going to kick me for it. Do you have a logbook?
Embarrassingly not.
Very bad, Mark. You need to maintain a mark. Okay. So when did you? So you said you'd started diving at the age of 12. And at what point did you decide to take it the professional route?
I was traveling the world from 17 to 23, and I became a dive professional at 23. It was a way to keep on traveling and see some exotic places in the world and finance it. They didn't tell me that you also end up with 100 kilos of books and wife and kids at some point and settling down. But it's been a great career for me for the last 30 years.
Okay. We had a very interesting question since you mentioned that you became an instructor at the age of 23. What, according to you, would be a good age to actually consider becoming a dive professional? Is there, of course, I don't know if there is a legal age, but I'm assuming 18, or maybe some countries have a different rule. But what, according to you, in all your years of experience, what do you think is a good age to actually think of taking it professionally?
I think one of the great things about the dive industry is that there's, it caters to so many different people around the world, different customer demographics. Some places it's great to be a young instructor. Like my sons became instructors at 18, or one of them at 19, and one of them at 18.
Okay.
One even left the industry and went back to study and have come back now, and they're both working as dive instructors. So, for them it's been great starting early. I've also had friends that start later, have a midlife crisis and decide to leave and travel around and pretend to be a backpacker and an 18-year-old for a little while, which is fun.
No, but also in terms of just pure maturity and in terms of decision making and all of that. So is there an age, like for example, driving, you need to be 18, right? And diving, I'm assuming you're going to be taking people underwater. It has its own risks. There is an element of danger in it and all of that. And you are going to be responsible for someone else's life as well. So which is why one of our guests had posed this question of the age. What do you think is a good age? What
Yeah,
do you
no,
think, Mark?
that's right. Like, attitude is more important than age. No, but
Attitude,
I've
yeah.
seen some kids that make great teachers. No, they're compassionate. They really care for people.
Correct,
That's
correct, correct.
often something that you have as an attribute. It's not something that always develops with age. You know? The
Okay,
same as you have to care for what you're doing.
okay. So, so you say you're a course director. So, what exactly does a course director do? Where you train people who want to be instructors, or what exactly does a course director
Yeah,
do?
technically, we teach the instructor development course, which is the 2-week program that trains people that are already dive masters through to instructors. There's loads of other programs that we can teach as well, like specialty instructor, and help people pursue their careers further with things like master instructor or staff instructor and so on as well. So there's a lot of
Okay,
levels in the system. PADI is the high. Our course director is the highest professional level. So
okay,
we're there to help with education, but we're also here to help ensure that standards are followed in shops, that help with business support, and help people find great careers around the world in the industry as well.
okay. So, so when you are a course director, you would help people find jobs as well.
Yeah,
I mean,
I've had a company for the last 15 years or so, dive careers, and we're teaching the instructor development courses and dive master courses in, I think, 13 different locations around the world. We're in Philippines, Sicily, South Africa, India, of course,
yeah.
Maldives, Sri Lanka, Thailand, Indonesia, many
Okay,
places around the world. And I think that network really helps people find work. So,
okay.
if our candidates are looking for work anywhere in the world, there's a really good chance I know someone there that can put them in touch with.
Okay, okay, that's great. Yeah, because everyone knows, Mark has been around, so Mark tries and helps you get a job at some point. Yeah. The other thing, Mark, I was saying, so how long have you been doing the IDC, the instructor development course in India?
In India, I think it's about 8 years. I might be completely off. I can't remember exactly. I think it's not 8
That
years.
long, that long.
Yeah. We've been doing the Temple Adventures in Pondicherry, and I
Okay,
think it's about 3 years ago that started doing with Dive India and Andaman Islands. I think something like that, about 7 years. But of course, I've trained many Indian instructors well before that as well.
okay, okay, okay. But do you have a number? How many instructors you've actually trained? And
Uh, I,
just an approximate.
I personally, I've trained about 2,500 instructors. Do about 100 instructors a year, and 23 years of teaching. So it's about 2,500 instructors.
Okay. You see, now, another where, I'm going to keep, asking questions that, some of our guests and friends have asked. So another interesting question was, there are a lot of, like you said, there are 2,500 instructors that are, coming out every, maybe in all these years, there's so many instructors being churned out. What would actually give them an edge? Say if I want to go abroad and work, I want to try and get a job in a good resort or in a liveaboard and stuff like that. So what's that, that interesting feature that dive shops are actually looking for, dive shops, dive operators?
I think one of the great things about the industry is there's so many different paths that you can take. Now you look for yourself, you've gone into the equipment and wholesale. And of course, then, to be valuable in that part of the industry, what you'd be looking for is someone with good retail sales, someone who has good management experience or good on the computer. So it really depends on what sort of job they want. If you go to work on liveaboards, we do some training for liveaboard cruise directors as well. And
Okay.
of course, on a liveaboard, languages are always an asset.
Yes.
Have been able to teach specialties like nitrox or deep.
Okay.
They're the customer's going to be into having a really good knowledge of the marine environment. No, they're
Okay.
great working on liverboards or resorts around the world as well.
Okay.
So it's all those things that you can learn within the industry, but there's also a lot of skills that people bring from outside the industry. Computer skills,
management skills. Yeah.
Background. Now, all of those strengths that you have, you can use those really well to find a great career in the dive industry.
Okay. You had mentioned languages. Why would you say that? Because if you want to go work abroad, you'd say?
It can be useful. You look at the Indian market now, it's starting to grow significantly, or before the COVID, it was growing very well overseas. And of course, then instructors specifically in places like Indonesia, I know some guys also here in Thailand, we're looking for instructors that could cater to that Indian market. Being able to speak languages like Hindi or Tamil or whatever, those languages are important now.
Okay.
With that Indian market starting to travel overseas. And equally, if someone has French or German or Chinese or whatever,
Cantonese Mandarin, yeah.
I even sent one of my sons to China to study for a year to get Chinese to help make him a better instructor. I don't know how much Chinese he learned, but he had a good time.
All right. So typically, how long does the instructor course, the IDC that you conduct, that dive carriers conduct, typically how long does that last?
That is a little bit over 2 weeks, which includes time for specialty instructor training as well. And there's an exam, there's a 2-day exam at the end of the training. But to get to the level where you can do an instructor development course, you've already had to go through open water, advanced rescue, and the dive master.
Yeah.
And need to have been a diver for at least 6 months, with at least 10 dives before they come back, or at least 60 dives.
Okay, so in fact, that was a question I wanted to ask you. You have this whole zero to hero concept now, which is you join a dive center, you do the open water, and then you go on and try and finish your instructor course as well at some point. But what do you think of that? You say you work as the dive master at least for minimum of 6 months and then look at the IDC?
Since you've done your, when you complete your open water course, the entry-level certification, you need 6 months before you can start an instructor development course.
Okay.
Now I've seen people that have gone straight through as quickly as possible and into an instructor course and make fantastic instructors. Okay. Equally, I've seen people that have worked as dive masters for a decade and come through and they just don't have that attitude or commitment to make a good instructor. So I don't necessarily think it's a matter of time. Of course, gaining a little bit more experience around a shop, knowing how the business works, being used to dealing with people, they're all valuable skills to have. But no, I think if it's something that if it's a goal that you really want to achieve, do it as quickly as possible. I think makes sense. Okay.
But does dive carriers do anything for dive masters or anything like that? No, it's only the instructor.
Yeah, because I live on Koh Tao, I'm much more involved in the dive master market here in Thailand on Koh Tao than elsewhere. But we also have packages including dive master and IDC, and I've got several other course directors working for me in different locations, like in Philippines or Indonesia or Sicily or whatever as well. So they can help with the dive master training as well. We're even looking at next month on starting to run some physics lectures and physiology lectures and things like that online as well for anyone that's interested in dive master training or as preparation for an instructor course. Okay.
So any particular dive center, you work with a particular dive center in Koh Tao
with Simple Life Divers.
I'm sorry, can you say it again?
Simple Life.
Okay. Temple Life.
Simple Life. Yeah.
Okay, that's in Phuket. No, in Koh Tao.
In Koh Tao, yeah.
In Koh Tao. Okay. All right. So how long do you think one should be even prepared for a dive master? How many dives? Of course, there is a minimum requirement, say by PADI and all of that. But I'm trying to get your perspective on it. All these years of diving experience and all these instructors that you have actually seen, what would you recommend? A lot of people want to finish their dive master, say, in 3 weeks, 4 weeks. What do you think is a good time to actually come to Kota or any other dive center in India as well?
It depends where you're doing the dive master training, because if you're in a shop which is diving 2, 3, 4 dives a day every day, and there's a lot of business going through, you build up a wealth of experience very quickly. Now, if you're a dive center that might not have so much going on with customers coming through the door, it may take longer to build up that experience as well. I think it makes more sense to spend more time with your dive master course than building up experience before going through to the dive master course. Because of course, you come out a better dive professional if you do more training with it.
Okay. So if someone, just for the benefit of our viewers, if someone wants to do it, so they log into the Simple Life Dive Center website, or they log into Dive Careers, and they can look at options?
Yeah, they can look. This my website is www.dive.com.
Yeah, we'll put it up for you, don't worry. We'll put it up there.
Contact me directly, and I'm happy to answer any questions if they contact me on email or whatever. Now I might be a little bit slow with replies at the moment a bit, because I'm working up on the farm a lot, but normally much better with replies.
No worries. Now, just a few questions in relevance to people who are non-professionals out here. What do you think of the e-learning options that are currently available? What do you think? Because right now people have time on their hands and not much that they can do. So what do you think of the e-learning options that PADI is offering at the moment?
I think it's great. Of course, if you can spend time at home now and get all the theory mastered and understood, that means when you go somewhere to do, whether it's your open water course or dive master course or instructor course, you have more time to devote to the diving. So online theory is fantastic. And I think in the domestic market or Indian market, they're very computer savvy.
Net savvy, yes.
Works very well in the Indian market, I would imagine.
Okay. And in any particular course that you would recommend, apart from, of course, the theory of the open water course, anything else that you would recommend, like the Nitrox or something like that?
Nitrox is a great course to do online. There's very little that you actually have to do in a dive shop. Analyze a couple of tanks and plan a couple of dives with the dive instructor. But Nitrox, you can do pretty much the entire course online. And Nitrox has great advantages, especially if you're on a liveaboard or on a resort. That extended time that you get on those 20 to 30 meter depths really do make a difference. So if anyone's planning on going for a holiday to Maldives or wherever, or Lakshadweep, or
it's real value for money, yeah.
It'd be a great extra knowledge to take with them.
Okay. So the other thing, another one of our students who is also a teacher, she's a teacher at an IB school. So she was saying, PADI has now integrated their dive courses with the IB syllabus across the world. What do you think? Apart from the open water course, is there anything else that we can offer these IB schools even in India?
I'm not sure about the curriculum credit that they get, but I know I started as a 12-year-old because one of my teachers was a dive instructor at school and an underwater photographer. So he got us all interested in as an early age, and we'd go diving on the weekends, trips away with the diving. When reached 15, which used to be the minimum age for advanced, then did the advanced course and so on as well. So there should be all those courses that you can offer at the schools, right through to rescue training. And you think with the rescue and the first aid training, they're excellent skills for kids to have. The first aid
course, you say?
The first aid and rescue.
Okay. Okay. Um, what do you think, Mark, in your experience, of course, none of us have seen something like this in our lifetime. Is there light at the end of this tunnel?
I,
You know?
I think it's really important to stay optimistic and plan and dream about the career that we'll have in the future. And I think actually in India you're in a good position because your market is predominantly domestic. So actually, right up to lockdown, the numbers in India were increasing for certification numbers. No, and that is a great sign. So I'm sure straight after lockdown, much of the world will have problems of international flights coming in. The dive industry in India should bounce back very quickly because a huge, motivated, eager domestic market there.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, we are hoping that the lockdown opens soon, and also that the cases don't rise because it's a double-edged sword. So you've got to be a little careful about it. So I'm just going to take some questions that people have asked. Any precautions? Say, assuming that the dive industry opens up in a couple of months, we're all keeping our fingers crossed. What do guests need to look for in dive centers for safety and for their own well-being? What do they have to look for?
I think, especially with the concerns now of COVID, the advantage of owning your own equipment being far more hygienic is important. So people should really look at owning their own mask and snorkel and maybe even a wetsuit. Also, I think what shops will start doing, once they start opening up and running again, they'll probably offer each student their own mouthpiece. And that makes it quite hygienic with the use of the regulator and so on as well. Right. I think it's fair enough to look for those sorts of things.
Okay. Is there any protocol that has been discussed or anything? Because Koh Tao is like the mecca of diving in the world. Is there any protocol that's been decided or discussed in Koh Tao on how these dive centers are going to open up, and what are the safety measures that they're going to take?
Yeah, this has caught us all by surprise a little bit. So I think now people are starting to look at how they will run business in the future, and I think some great ideas will come from it. This being able to do things like this now, this interview or webinars online or teaching part of the theory online, they're things that I think look like they have so many possibilities for the future. So they're things that I would really like to integrate in my programs in the future, and this lockdown has taught us that. So I think we'll see business, adapting, but in a really positive way.
Okay. So I'm just going to pose one question before I miss it. Ashwin Dravidian has posed this question: can one be an instructor for a few months of the year and get back to a profession for the remaining of the year? So it's an interesting question. People like in the metros in India are having jobs as well. So maybe you can answer that.
Well, I think much of the world is very seasonal. So there are a lot of opportunities to travel to areas where and work during their on season, and then go back to the real world and work the rest of the year. Right?
Yeah. Okay. But I think there is a license. There is a you need to keep your license valid for a year, right? So you need to pay the fees for a year.
You pay a membership fee to PADI, and that is for each year.
That is annual. So whether you work or not, you got to pay. You got to pay for the annual fees. All right. Okay, so I'm going to take some questions from our guests. We had made a note of them. Coco from Chennai has asked this question: why is the underwater world so unexplored? We know more about the moon and the Mars, and why not about our underwater world? Maybe you'd like to answer that.
It's true. I think they've only gone down the Mariana Trench just twice, hey? The bathysphere and the Cameron, the film director, just recently, huh?
Correct.
Because the pressure is the problem. I think that makes it much more difficult to launch
Correct.
to the bottom of the sea than it does to launch into outer space.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, okay. um, so what kind of, since you are you're a course director, and what's the kind of salaries that one can actually expect, once they finish their instructor course?
It depends a little bit where in the world you're working.
Yeah.
I know when my kids finished their training, they went out working for about €1,000 a month, which I think seems pretty common here in Thailand.
Okay,
When you,
€1,000 a month. Yeah.
yeah, €1,000 a month, which is what, about 70,000, 80,000 rupees, isn't it?
Okay. Yes.
In India it might be a little bit less than that, which the instructors can earn, but it depends. Again, after with a little bit more experience, if you take paths into management or into equipment maintenance or whatever, there's a lot of other opportunities to earn money. And I know, for instance, working in a place like Maldives, the salaries can be great. Right?
Yeah, it depends. Yeah, okay. So there's an interesting question again by a friend of ours. Someone who is dyslexic, someone who has an ADHD condition, someone who has strong prescription, who wears strong prescription glasses. Can they pursue a career in diving, especially being an instructor and stuff like that?
Yeah, well, the glasses, my eyesight is getting bad, and I've lost my glasses as well now, so it's getting hard to read. You need to be able to look after people, but masks can have prescription lenses in it, so that still gives you good control underwater.
Okay.
With the eyesight. Things like dyslexia, there are written exams that the candidates need to do during the instructor training.
Yeah.
But you do, with the doctor's certificate for dyslexia, you do get extra time on the exams, and the exams aren't too challenging. There's ways of learning how to answer exams.
We're gonna pick Rob's brain soon on that one. Yeah. So if now, assuming one doesn't want to become an instructor and teach people on a daily basis, but he still wants to do his instructor because there's so much learning that comes with it. What other profession do you recommend in the marine space?
I think to combine it with instructing, some sort of understanding about marketing would be great skills to have and a great profession to have, because then you can actually promote your business really well. There's also loads of things like conservation and stuff which go really well with working as an instructor as well.
Okay, no, Mark, what I meant was, I want to become an instructor because of the knowledge I would learn about diving. But can I use that knowledge in some other field? Say assuming underwater photography or marine biology. Is there a third? Is there any other option?
Yeah, well, I think on the safety aspects as well, with the first aid training, because you need to be a first aid instructor as a dive instructor as well. So those skills in first aid training are useful in many industries and many paths. I know many marine biologists that got their start as dive instructors and loved it very much, and then went back to uni and became marine biologists as well. So there's a lot of things that overlap with the skills that you learn, or just being able to speak in public and handle a lot of people and so on as well, that you get from working as an instructor.
All right. So Mark, there is anxiety everywhere. Now everyone is a little tensed, especially dive operators. People who really love diving as well, the guests. What is the plan? As in terms of diving, do we just wait it out and then at the end of the tunnel. There is definitely light. We are all keeping ourselves positive. But what is the message that you would like to, leave us with?
But I think there is light at the end of the tunnel, and I think the changes that this will bring to the industry will be positive changes. I think we'll see a lot more focus on online learning, which is great. And we'll probably, I think there's great things happening. To me, it looks like June should start again with international travel, or at least I'm hoping that, because I have IDC coming up in Maldives and in Pondicherry in June, so I'm hoping to get back to India in June. So it looks like the world is returning to some normalcy.
So Neha, it will. There has to be. It has to be. But of course, we are witnessing some very unprecedented, sights and scenes. But I guess it will all change, and it will all change for the better. So Neha is very optimistic that she can go around doing a frog kick again in 2 to 3 months. And she specially asked me to mention about you and your hatred towards the frog kick. Any particular reason?
It's not a hatred for the frog kick. It's that people need to learn how to kick properly first. And then replacing the use of frog.
Right. Anyway, Mark, before you get eaten by the bugs, thanks so much for joining us, and thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your time. We will try and do another session, maybe on another topic when you're free sometime. But once again, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to have you online. And hopefully you come to India soon, because a lot of people in India are missing you, and hopefully you have more IDCs in India and more instructors coming out of here. Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you so much. So any questions, guys? Mark is live. Any other questions that I might have missed? Anybody has? So Princess Kodai has said, have a safe time, Uncle Mark. And advanced birthday, a lot of advanced birthday wishes for you, Mark.
Thank you. I'm going to have a great farm tomorrow.
Are you drinking your beers, or you have quit completely?
There's no alcohol allowed at the moment.
Really? Not even in Thailand. I thought Thailand would be better.
Yeah, no, until the 30th.
Until the 30th, I think, It's the same here in India. We are hoping May 3rd things will open up. So fingers crossed. Yeah. Anyway, great. Thanks so much, Mark. Thanks again. And so again, dive carriers, guys, dive carriers, Mark, www.dive-carriers.com or the Simple Life Dive Center. You guys can send Mark a message. And in between all his gardening and plantation work, he will definitely get back to you. Sure. All right. Thanks so much, Mark. Have a great birthday. Have a good one.
Thank you.
I hope you had an interesting session with Mark. Please, let us know your feedback. If you have missed any questions, if you want us to get anything from Mark in terms of any more information, please feel free to message us or email us. Like I said, going back, we need your support. We need your support in this time. We need everyone to come back diving with us and all the dive centers across India. Buy local, very important, buy local. We need you to buy local stuff and not go to dive in from some Spanish vendor. But thanks so much for joining us. Cheers and have a great weekend, guys. Thank you so much.